All right, and we're going to go ahead and introduce ourselves, and then you can start your presentation.
Okay.
I'm Chuck Courtney, Associate Director for the Institute.
I'm Jay Sternadel, the Legislative Research Director for Project VoteSmart.
I'm Susan Knoll, the Director of the Institute.
And my name is Drew Galloway, and I'm the New Politics Forum Program Coordinator here at the Institute.
Nice to meet you all. My name is Valeria Castillo, and I will be the first speaker of our presentation.
Great.
Okay, so because I believe Ben Franklin when he said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." We have chosen this problem at our school. The first thing we had to do was to establish that we did indeed have a problem. Austin, we have a problem. The week before Thanksgiving this year, the Austin American-Statesman on the front page of their sports section had a story about Austin High School was going to go back to the 5A next February. This was big news, but when you turn to page 2, the news got even bigger. On the second page stated, the largest high school in Austin is now the Valle High School with almost 3,300 students. Next year, it is projected that will grow to 3,700 students, and the year after, over 4,000 students. With fast growth comes fast growth problems. In the year 2000, when the new Del Valle High School building was opened, there was less than 1,250 students. Now, that is approaching 3 times that number. The problem with the growth is you need to change with that growth. Yet, we are handling much of our problems the exact way we did when we had 1/3 of the student population. This is hard, and in some cases, because high school by nature is very traditional, it is hard to change. Nowhere is this change needed more than in the area of discipline. We have selected as our problem. Discipline, the only way to turn around the school is to create an atmosphere in which discipline is not a real problem. Through a brainstorming session, we decided to go and talk with our assistant principals and find out what they think about this. This is what we found. 90% of the students are good students and seldom or rarely get in any problems. It is about the 10% of the population that causes 90% of the problems, and almost 99% of the repeat or consistent problems. At this rate, we do not have enough professional staff. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. For a moment, you cut out. Can you go back a few sentences and repeat what you were just saying? It was about the statistics of punishment.
Sure. 90% of the students are good students and seldom or rarely get in any problems. It is about the 10% of the population that causes 90% of the problems and almost 99% of the repeat or consistent problems. At this rate, we do not have enough professional staff to help out in the growing population of discipline. That is, if we continue to work the way we are doing. It is a simply and plainly matter of numbers. If each assistant principal is in charge of 800 students and 10% of their students cause problems constantly, then that would mean you will see 80 different students each week, almost 2 students per hour per day. This keeps the assistant principals in their office and leaves them no room to solve or get ahead of this problem. How can you leave from behind? How can you get ahead of the problem to prevent further problems if you're simply struggling to keep up with the problem? Simply, but you cannot. That is where we are right now, and frankly, I, Valeria Castillo, I'm not happy to be in this position. We are not happy to be in this position, and we have collectively come up with a plan to get ourselves out of this problem. What is the solution? So as you can see, we have the presentation for the Del Valle High School Teen Corps program. Our project is, how could we help our school and become part of the solution? Our problem is school discipline. Our solution is a school-run teen court. Less than 20 high schools in the U.S. currently do this. 49 states have teen courts. Teen courts start the process to empower students. Teen courts allow students to become leaders, and teen courts reduce discipline problems. Also known as youth court, peer court, and student court. And as you can see, we have some of our students in those pictures. What is teen court? A program in which youth sentences by their peers. Most of the respondents and defendants are between the ages of 11 and 17 years old, and the youth volunteers are between the ages of 13 and 18. Teen court program and students. A better understanding of the system, a better understanding of recurring delinquency problem among juveniles, an intimidated look at the judicial system, exposure to careers in law court-related professions, exposure to the serious consequences of juvenile delinquency, a meaningful role in helping restore the community. And in front of you, you have the teen court philosophies, which are the following. Teen courts are form restorative justice. Teen courts are rooted in the belief that the students who volunteer to participate as jurors, clerks, and bailiffs and the juvenile offender will benefit from participation. And the premise is that a juvenile offender will not continue delinquent behavior after participating in the judicial process in which a jury of their peers determines that he/she violated the law and recommends an appropriate consequence. Teen court privilege to the community. On learning intervention and prevention, a way to hold juvenile offenders accountable, a means for educating youth and the legal and judicial system builds competences, a meaningful forum for youth to practice and enhance leadership skills. Teens can use volunteers' time for graduation, community, and service hours. And here we have more the court privilege to the community, which is immediate consequences, gives young people the opportunity to participate in the decision-making process, promotes a healthy attitude toward the authority and eliminates fear in dealing with the court system, capitalizes on peer influence, and an avenue for building ties between youth and their community. If youth do not see themselves to the social contract that the adult society adheres to, they will see no reason to follow it. Most teen courts function as diversion programs, accept first-time offenders, accept misdemeanor nonviolent cases, require youth to admit to the charge and voluntarily participate in the program, require parental consent for the youth to participate. Youth Courts National Program. National Youth Court Center, the offices of OJJDP, NHTSA, SAMHSA, and ABA are strong supporters of youth court. States with youth program. As you can see, 1,109 youth courts in the United States, 49 states, and DC. States without youth court programs are just Connecticut. And in front of you, you have a pie chart that shows the percentages of who administrates the teen courts. The high percentage is the 28%. Traditional justice asks the questions: who did it, what laws were broken, who will be punished the offender. A restorative alternative philosophy for addressing the crime are the following three. And the three questions of restorative justice. Restorative justice: what is the harm that was done? How can the harm be repaired? Who is responsible for this repair? And the restorative justice: what is the law that was broken? Who broke the law, and who should they punish? And these are your teen court attorneys. On your left, you have Brisa Rodriguez, and on your right, you have Cecilia Perez. On the restorative justice, you ask the question: who was harmed? What needs to be done to repair the harm, and who is responsible for the repair? You have another percentage chart that shows the types of offense, and the highest one is 95% is theft. And the types of offenders, as you can see, 56% are targets. Common sentence options: community service, oral written apologies, essays, restitution, jury duty, or educational workshops. Additional sentence options are also known as curfew, tutoring, victim awareness class of Espanol, or peer meditation. We have the primary youth program, the youth judge model, the youth tribunal model, and peer jury model. And the adult judges will be the defense attorneys, prosecuting attorneys, clerks, bailiffs, jurors, and a judge. Also, judge volunteers serve in the role of judge, prosecuting attorneys, defense attorneys, clerks, bailiffs, and jurors. Again, judges, there is no pure jury, just judges determine the sentence. Adult or judge volunteer serves in or their monitor. Youth volunteer serves as jurors and question the defendant directly, and some programs use youth advocates to provide support for the defendant. They create forms, they do staffing, marketing, develop court operations, and implement effective case practices. And these are the presentations. We're going to present for the high school principals in January 2016. We're going to do the Valle ISD cabinet on February, YMCA on Austin February 2016, and the school board on March 2016. Any questions? I'm gonna give the seat to my good friend Jason.
Hi, I'm Jason Cano. I'll be giving the solution speech. E.M. Foster said, "Spoon feeding in the long run teaches us nothing but the shape of the spoon. This is what we have done too long in school business. We have treated students as workers instead of clients. We have treated students as cattle instead of individuals. We have treated students as one size fits all in solutions. And this does not fit society today. It cannot get us to where we want to be. And in the long run, it makes it more difficult on the adults who are running the school. Can a school with over 4,000 students run successfully today with only 7 administrators? The answer is yes, but only if you can do it if the student body is behind the administrators and they are working together for a common goal. School is not a prison, and the administrators are not guards. In fact, in the old siege model of justice, in many cases, actually reinforces that exact concept. We have shown today something much more. We have shown you today that Del Valle is within 20 miles of some of the best schools in the state. We are the largest high school in the Austin area, and we are our own worst enemy. We are creating the problems of discipline because we are not currently including our students as part of the solution. To change the results, all we have to do is change the paradigm. And to change the paradigm, all we have to do is to the way and we approach discipline. To make discipline not a problem, we need to include the 90% of the students who are not making the problems as part of the solution. We can use peer pressure, peer teaching, and teen court to do this. It is working in over 200 high schools across the nation right now. I ask you, if not then, when? Can we afford to wait? Every year we wait, our school gets larger and problems multiply. Pretty soon, the problems will be institutionalized. We can no longer lose another generation of leaders. Let's do this right here, right now, because it's the right thing to do. Let us bring justice back to our schools so that we will not only be the largest high school in the capital city of Texas, but also the best school as well.
Now our judges are going to ask some questions for your team, okay?
I have a question. How did you all divide up the work to put together your project from among the 5 of you? Who did what, or did you all do everything together?
It was a conjoined contribute towards both the speeches and the idea of our resolution.
Did you happen to talk to any of the schools? You said there are 200 schools that have teen court in place. Have you talked to any of them in your research?
Yes, we talked with 2 that have already established teen court within their schools, and they have found that is successful in their ways.
I'm just curious, what 2 schools? Do you remember?
Through the YMCA, there were schools that were connected with the YMCA.
Great. And have you talked to principals on your campus?
Yes, we've talked with the administrators for the 9th grade and throughout the school, and they agree with the program and believe that it could help not only with disciplinary issues, but also to involve more students.
Along that line, it was interesting to hear that you said 80, I believe 80 cases, disciplinary cases a week for each assistant principal. Is that from the assistant principal, or how did you get the statistic?
No, these are from the assistant principal.
Assistant principal.
Do you happen to know what, are you proposing a system just for Del Valle, or would it be a community-wide system that other schools participated in also?
Well, we just want it for Del Valle right now, but perhaps this could set a precedent that it could further expand into the community and spread.
I noticed you had a timeline for your solution, and I think it was, what, March before the school board? Have you already talked to the school board about having a presentation at that time?
Yes, sir.
Has this ever been, did you all come up with this as an original idea, or is it something that's been considered at your school for a while? It just needs to be carried out or acted on?
It's never been an issue that was brought up before, so we had thought about it here in our debate class and thought we could have possibly involved more of the students in the entire school. So it is an original idea.
Great.
Did you talk to any of your fellow students about volunteering, and do you think that this is something that they would want to be involved in multiple facets?
Yes, we did. We talked to the kids that are most affected into this, and they agreed that they would like to be part of this and help develop the value. And, yeah.
And I'm just generally a little curious, what drew your attention to this specific issue, or why was this the problem that you chose to find a solution for?
Discipline is a really, really major problem. So, and it brings the school into just focusing into that and not focusing into stuff that we should really worry about. So we thought that when we come up with this idea, it will be really helpful to fix that problem.
Okay, great.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah,
It's
excellent
really
job. Thank you.
very impressed.
They're just going to set up the next one.
She's talking.
Hmm?
She's talking now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We didn't hear anything you said, so you
sorry.
probably want to start over.
Okay, so we're going to start the presentation for the WCSYMC Moot Court International. So
Okay.
I will start again. There are many students who view school as useless. So they lose interest in school, which in turn either makes their grades drop or makes them drop out. We are one of many of those schools in the world. This is apparent in seeing that of the 1,200 freshmen that enter high school every year, only 400 actually graduate. Should we change the course of our thinking on education, or should we just stay the course? The question here impacts the future of the world. How can we instruct our students so they can be successful? How can we best make sure that we can instruct in English yet retain our Spanish at the same time? The real question is, what happens to all the other students? Well, their loss of interest in school makes them give up, makes them several hundreds of them drop out. Moot Court Espanol is a solution to some of the students who lose interest in school. The program is meant to increase interest in school once again. We, together with our sponsor, the National YMCA, U.S. Army, and the Ministry of Justice in Peru. Moot Court Espanol here at the Valle has been very effective in waking students up how interesting school can actually be. We need to try and motivate students to want to stay in school. A program like this helps students interested in being anything involving law. This program not only does that, but it is also very fun and can merely attract Spanish-speaking students. Some of the students are bilingual, so this can help them if they want to go into a career in law because bilingual speakers are very in high demand. Spanish Law Day was very interesting and even opinion-changing for many of the students who participated. Before Moot Court Espanol, some of the students view school and school activities as a waste of time and that they have no real purpose. In submission, Moot Court Espanol will be very useful for increasing interest in students. We need more programs in general that motivate students to stay in school. These programs are meant to increase the graduation population. My friend Brian would present the presentation.
Hello, good morning. I'm Ryan, and I'll be presenting the Spanish part of the Moot Court that we shared with our Peruvian partners over the break. If you allow me to begin, I shall begin. It's in Spanish, by the way. El proyecto comienza en enero de 2016. Más de 150 escuelas secundarias en el norte de Sudamérica, Asia y Europa se benefician al estudiante de EFL, mayor proyecto de su tipo en el mundo. Estas son las reglas simples. Hay dos equipos de 2 estudiantes, cada una para uno, la parte recurrente y el otro para el apelado. Cada altavoz hablará por 15 minutos. El equipo apelante reservará parte de su tiempo para una refutación del habla. Primer punto de error. Si la orden de allanamiento fue emitida incorrectamente, que ordena la supresión de las pruebas obtenidas como resultado de la orden de búsqueda y si el tribunal abusó de su discreción para no hacerlo. La recurrente señala que la orden de allanamiento era ilegal. El equipo apelado señala que la orden fue legal. Segundo punto de error. Ya sea apelante y fiscalía bajo el Código Penal de Texas, secciones 1904 y 2204, tal como se aplica a él, era inconstitucional bajo la primera enmienda, libertad de religión, y debido a su interacción con Texas, alojamientos religiosos, estatutos, capítulo 110 de la práctica y remedios civiles del Código de Texas. El equipo apelante señala que el señor Colson no se pudo practicar su libertad religiosa. El equipo apelado señala que el Estado tiene que intervenir cuando existe un daño a otra persona. Jueces ejemplos de preguntas, primer altavoz recurrente. 1. ¿Por qué es tan importante para la policía seguir las reglas porque los criminales no sigan las reglas correctas? ¿Cómo la cuarta enmienda se aplica aquí? ¿Está argumentado que el señor Colson no fue leído sus derechos por aquí? Jueces de ejemplos de preguntas, primer altavoz apelado. ¿Por qué es tan importante para la policía seguir las reglas porque los criminales no siguen las reglas correctas? Como la cuarta enmienda se aplica aquí. Está discutiendo el Hodges que no cometió errores. Jueces,
Ejemplos de preguntas segundo altavoz apelante. ¿Qué derechos están garantizados bajo una persona a practicar una religión en este caso? 2. ¿Son estos derechos absolutos? 3. ¿Puede el Estado hacerse cargo de una familia sin practicar una religión que perjudica a un miembro de esa familia? 4. ¿Cómo funciona esta plaza entre la separación de iglesia y Estado? Ejemplos de preguntas segundo altavoz apelado. Primero, ¿qué derechos están garantizados a una persona para practicar su religión? 2. ¿Fueron estos derechos dados al señor Colson? 3. ¿Son estos derechos absolutos? 4. ¿Puede el Estado hacerse cargo de una familia si esa familia pone la vida del miembro de la familia en problemas? 5. ¿Cómo funciona esta plaza con la separación de iglesia y Estado? 6. ¿Sucederá en este caso si el Estado se echa hacia atrás y no hace nada? Orden, demandante, primer altavoz 13 minutos, segundo altavoz 12 minutos, apelado, altavoz 15 minutos, segundo altavoz 15 minutos. Refutación del habla apelante 5 minutos. Tiempo incluye preguntas y respuestas. Teoría del caso recurrente. La orden de registro era ilegal y el señor Colson no pudo ejercer su derecho constitucionalmente garantizándole la libertad de religión. Teoría del caso del apelado. La orden de allanamiento fue ilegal y el gobierno de modo en numerosas ocasiones. El derecho del señor Colson para practicar su religión nunca se ha negado. El Estado tiene el derecho y el deber de intervenir cuando los derechos de una persona están siendo negados por los derechos de otros. Especialmente en el caso de estos derechos son el derecho de la vida. Deje que los argumentos comiencen. Aquí estamos los cuatro. I'm sorry, let me switch. Pardon me. Here we are, the four of us. Brice Rodriguez, the first attorney, and Cecilia Perez, the second one, and me as well, Brian Cordova, and Mrs. Kimberly Nieto. Let the arguments begin. Thank you. That was all for the presentation. Okay, I'm about to let my partner Kimberly Nieto deliver the solution speech.
Oh. Now I will be saying the solution speech. Como no está experimentado en las cosas del mundo, todas las cosas que tienen algo de dificultad te parecen imposibles. We are learning English and learning to think outside of the box. How many people can truly say that they are bilingual? Not many, but I am. I'm introduced in English and then I transfer into Spanish and argue in Spanish. The plus here is that I learned two languages and learn to think in both. I receive instructions once, learn twice. This is amazing and very beneficial to the learning process. If everyone learned like this, we could make a real difference in the world. Our traditional education program will have you take the two different courses and I have you learn to think in both. Here we have mixed the learning by double in taking half of the time. Our school with over 3,400 students has a problem. Today we have shown you our solution and our solution was based on Aristotle quote, educating the mind without educating the heart is not education at all. Thank you. Now, if you have any questions, you may ask.
Sure. So what do you think the next step would be in implementing your solution?
Well, we've been talking to Lima, Peru, and we were working with them and practicing this this court. So it's going in a good process. So I think it will be really, really helpful.
Okay, great.
Where did you go to do your research?
We our research we received it. We got help from our teacher, and we also talking to Lima, Peru. We received all the research we needed and all the information, and also we talked to the students are here at Del Valle and interacted with them and asked them how it feels to be bilingual and how it will help to have this Moot Court and International and to practice and to be able to understand how it is to be able to speak 2 languages. And on Tuesday, we will be talking to the, I'm sorry. This past Tuesday, we talked to the, presented to the Ministry of Justice at Lima, Peru, and 50 schools, we will be talking to 50 schools on March 2016 about this YMCA Moot Court International.
Cool.
Yeah. Any more questions?
How did you all come up with this idea?
Well, as us 3, we speak 2 languages, and we understood that it's a process to try to get it to translate and to speak. And so I think having an activity to help us develop all that and to help us make us not feel left out, to make us feel, to make us enjoy, to be able to enjoy that we are to be able to enjoy to speak 2 languages and to be able to practice and argue and do moot courts and all of that in both languages, English and Spanish. And it will be very helpful for all of us, right, guys? Yeah, it's a great experience so far.
How many current bilingual students do you have at your high school? And how do you think that like your Moot Court project can interface with some of the like language classes at your high school?
Well, we have over 2,000 bilingual students at the high school right now. And I think this would help all of us because, like I said, it will help us feel enjoyable and to help us enjoy being able to understand and take the process to understand and speak both languages. So it will help also to the, because we have to have 2 credits for another language besides English, and most students that have Spanish are native Spanish, and it will help them understand more. And we also speak to schools in Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and Chile. So we also meet new people. We interact with people that are across the world, and we speak to them, and we connect all in the same language. So it's a really great experience because at the end of the day, we connect because we speak the same language. So it's a really, really great experience.
Excellent.
Yeah. And also, being able to speak 2 languages, it helps you develop English because it takes you more time to develop, to process in your brain and to be able to translate right there and there. And it makes speak fluently English and Spanish. So it takes a lot of your intelligence, and it gets your brain working.
So to implement your solution, will it require funding?
No, right?
No, I guess we're only required to be able to present and have some sort of knowledge on the cases that we're going to do.
Yeah, it's mainly just research and to just interact and get people to come in and do it and volunteer. Give me 1 second. Any questions? Oh, and we're also able to video chat with those people. So
Thank you so much.
any more questions?
I think that's all for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I will give the floor to
Okay, thank you.
So the terrorist attacks on Paris that took place on Friday, November 13, 2015, have changed the entire refugee situation. No longer will there be calls to help people for humanitarian reasons if that help does not include much larger component of safety or security. You cannot afford to lose your country to help another one. When Ben Franklin said that a country which gives up liberty to obtain security would have neither, he did not mean that you could just give away your country to another and then expect things not to change. The leaders of each nation who went to the people. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we sure
Yeah,
can.
yeah, we're listening. Thank you.
As I was saying, the leaders of each nation who went to the people who elected them to provide their country with adequate protection and security. This cannot happen under any open door policy like the one advocated by with the opposition. Look at what is happening currently in Europe and what has happened in the US last week. On November 30th, we debated this exact topic with Sizzler High School, the largest high school in the province of Manitoba, Canada. To take people within your country without vetting them and without going through legal methods is not only asking for trouble, it is encouraging it. The purpose of the U.S. government is to protect the rights, lives, and property of U.S. citizens, U.S. policies, including U.S. immigration and refugee resettlement states, and not some poor, defenseless, feckless, backward nation that has to take a penny ante approach to every question. When the associated costs and risks are sufficiently low and the humanitarian interest sufficiently compelling, we can afford to do things like provide emergency disaster relief and humanitarian aid when there is no obvious immediate U.S. interest being served. One of the humanitarian things we do is refugee resettlement. The question before us, therefore, isn't whether we accept immigrants or refugees, of course we do, or even whether we accept Muslim immigrants and refugees at a time when we are being targeted by Muslim terrorists. Rather, the question is, do we accept these refugees at this time in these numbers under these circumstances? International flows of refugees and those posing as refugees are an avenue of transport for ISIS and other terrorists. Our opponents have created two major logical fallacies, which the first one is false dilemma is not in either a problem. By taking in refugees, we are just helping a problem with a temporary solution. We are not fixing anything, and in many cases, we're just creating the problem worse. And the second one is red herring. The problem is not the refugees. It is a problem that caused this situation. And it is the condition that caused the people to become refugees in the first place. That is the problem. Until or unless you fix that problem first, you will always have the problem. Taking on refugees without fixing the original problem that caused the people to leave in their first place is a recipe for disaster, and this is the plan for our opponents.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Garcia, and I will be giving our product speech. I ran friendly debates. Knowing our enemies, we meet our friends. Our project were monthly debates over current topics. Our first debate was this past Tuesday, December 7th, Monday, I'm sorry. Nuclear weapons. Isn't that what we're talking about?
No, we're talking.
This one. I'm sorry. Now this is the right presentation. So the Great Refugee Debate. Here's how to solve a growing problem and a peaceful movement of people, or a conflict waiting to happen. Our learning stretch. After the terror attacks of November 13, 2015 on Paris, the plight of mass immigration into Europe has changed from humanitarian concerns to security concerns. Should other countries take in more refugees? Our debate with Sizzler High School from Canada and Del Valle High School. We debated this topic on November 30th, 2015. The project was the debate on November 30th, 2015. with Sister High School, and this was after Paris, but before the shootings in California. And what were the students' feelings towards refugees before the shooting in California? And what were the students' feelings towards political positions about stopping immigration? These were the attorneys for Del Valle High School, and we were pro-immigrant, anti-terrorist. And this is from Sisler High School. All the Paris attacks happened November 13, 2015. Again, and we should have open borders, that the crossing surge into the Mediterranean, Balkans, and anti-immigration in England. Economists are not very good at seeing complete human beings. They tend to view the world as a giant value-maximizing machine. Allegiances and obligations, a settled sense of place, national social contracts, and other such things feature in their story mainly as friction. This is also some more over anti-immigration in England. And for pro-immigration in England, I'll just read one of them. For 4 years after the British government set a target of reducing net migration to the tens of thousands, the target is widely regarded as Prime Minister David. This is some more over pro-immigration for England. And a population looking for a place to go in search of a destination. We have the two events, the ones at Paris and the ones in California. We also do have suspects for those. And do we need more refugees? Going back to the debates that took place November 30th, Sister High School was in favor of yes, we do, and Del Valle High School was in favor of no, we do not need more refugees. Thank you. Now, my partner will be giving the solution speech.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Reese Rodriguez, and I'll be giving the solution speech today. As we said before, the terrorist attack in Paris, the bombing in Beirut, the hotel takeover in Mali, and the bombing of the Russian airplane have changed how we look at refugees today. Donald Trump says he's now more against allowing Syrian refugees into the U.S. than ever, warning it could be a way for a terrorist to sneak into the country. We have no idea who these people are. We're the worst when it comes to paperwork, Trump says on Monday, CNBC. This could be one of the great Trojan horses. Some may claim that protesting the refugees from Syria today is like what took place in the 1930s in the US and Canada when some protested the Jews fleeing Germany. On the surface, these claims may look similar. You have a group of people fleeing for persecution. However, there's one major difference. The Jews who were fleeing in the 1930s never had attacked another city, country, or way of life. They were not actively involved in terror, and most of the fears of the time were unrealistic. During the 1930s and early 1940s, the United States resisted accepting a large number of Jewish refugees escaping the Nazi terror sweeping Europe, in large part because of the fear-mongering by a small but vocal crowd. They claimed that the refugees were communist or anarchist infiltrators intent of spreading revolution, that the refugees were part of a global Jewish capitalist conspiracy to take control of the United States from the inside, that the refugees were either Nazis in disguise or under the influence of Nazi agents sent out to commit acts of sabotage, and that Jewish refugees were out to steal American jobs. Many rejected Jews simply because they weren't Christian. However, that argument is really moot. The Christian and Jews can get along very well, and in most places. And now, they're not trying to eradicate each other. This is not the case with the radical terrorists. I have heard on good authority that an executive order has given immigration authorities permission to let down the usual bars in favor of the so-called Jewish refugees from Germany, declared Julie Cantacuzene, a Republican activist of New York, according to the front page of the New York Times article that ran on May 18 of 1938. Cantacuzene, the granddaughter of President Ulysses Grant and an ardent opponent of President Franklin Roosevelt, claimed that the Soviet Revolution occurred only because the communist agents had snuck into Russia to instill their insidious poison onto the Russian people. She claimed that the same would happen here. Under these lax regulations, many communists are coming to this country to join the ranks of those who hate our institutions and want to overthrow them. This was the fear. That was nothing more than that. And this actually takes our opponent's arguments because you can cross-apply all the terrorist killing in the month of November 2015. Now, another very interesting aspect to this debate is comparing President Obama's opinion on this just chill out and allow the refugees to come here. We owe it to the world to take them in. We're, after all, America.
But if you compare it to Representative J. Will Taylor, a Tennessee Republican, who in 1940 argued that the New Deal showed more concern for European refugees than for the 10 million American refugees that walked the city in streets of desperation, according to researcher Wesley Greer of the East Tennessee State University. Similar arguments were advanced by Senator Rufus Holman, an Oregon Republican, and Representative Martin Dice, a Texas Democrat. What happens when a leader of one country tries to worry more about the people from other countries than people from his own? Fortune magazine in 1938 did a poll of American thoughts about the Jewish refugee situation in Germany and Austria. 67.4% of the U.S. population polled said we should keep them out of the U.S. This story is making a great deal of headlines currently and is in all the social media. The problem is twofold. First, polling in those days was not very scientific, and we should also note that Alf London was going to defeat FDR for president. Today, looking at what happened to the Jewish population of Europe, it would appear to be rather callous. But we're not comparing this. We're comparing to the actions of the Jewish refugees before 1938 to the refugees in Europe before November 30th of 2015. Now, I'd like to ask you this. Did the refugees of Germany in 1938 attack Paris, blow up a Russian airplane, bomb Beirut, or take over a major hotel? Of course not. However, there were fears both then and now which were very much alike. People in 1938 were afraid that the Jews would do this. But people today are no longer worried if the refugees in Europe are going to do such thing because they've already done it. As the absolute worst claims have now been proven to have taken place, let us quit arguing about moral equality and talk about what is really at stake, our survival. We have to win this round today. Why? Because if we do not, our country will not survive. Now, America is facing one of the biggest terrorist threats our nation has ever seen. ISIS claims that they have infiltrated Syrian refugees and will continue this method of jihad to destroy America. Now, the Obama administration is planning on taking in hundreds of thousands of Syrian refugees. Americans do not want Syrian refugees. This is a direct threat to the United States of America. There is no way we can effectively screen all of these refugees. Our national debt is almost at $20 trillion now. We cannot afford this. Fight the terrorists on their own soil, not here in our backyards. Americans do not feel safe anymore. Stop ending deals or negotiations to accept refugees. Do not allow any more people in our country from terrorist hotbeds. Thank you. We're ready for any questions that you have.
I'm curious if Del Valle or your community has any refugees.
No. Not that we are aware of, but at in Anderson they have quite a few refugees.
Thank you.
I might be a little bit confused, but Sisler High School, is that in Winnipeg, Canada?
Yes, it is.
How did y'all reconcile the differences between the constitutions of both countries, the laws, and also the culture? Because I would think the Canadian culture might be different from, and perspectives might be different from ours.
Yeah, they are a little bit different, but we both find a way to kind of meet in the middle. We use a lot of different things, and it's just really diverse because some of the cultures and laws are so different. So we both use both of them, but not necessarily ones that are not ones that are super specific.
So your position on the argument was not allowing Syrian refugees into the country. Beyond that, was there any other element to your solution? Was there any other plan or some sort of further action that you'd like to take?
Besides our debates, we're just trying to make this a little bit more local. We also do some video conferences with people in the, we do monthly debates with other people. So we're just trying to not only do it with people from Sisler High School, but also with everywhere else, and just kind of show different opinions. And it just keeps on continuing with the monthly debates in Canada.
So when you debated with Sisler,
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, please?
Did it mute?
No, ours isn't. I think they're frozen. Can you hear us? No, they're like completely. Okay, they left.
So they'll be back in a second.
Do you want me to stop this here and leave? Or are they gonna come back to this one?
They should come back.
No, but to this one?
They'll come back to this one. They dropped out. They should be back in a second. Okay, we need to
Iran.
get ready for the Iran nuclear one.
Product. I'm actually.
Okay.
Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yes. I'm going to turn you back around to the judges now.
Awesome, thank you.
This is the same group. You guys are the Syrian refugee group, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you guys have any other questions for them?
Oh, I guess we got cut off when I was asking the question about whether did Del Valle, when you were debating with the Canadian school, were you assigned your side for the debate, or did you pick?
No, we were assigned.
We were assigned.
Do you happen to know how your school feels about that issue? And was there any, I think it was just a debate, right? And you kind of research your side and argue your viewpoint, but did y'all use that information to learn any more about what people at Del Valle feel about the refugee crisis?
Yeah, for sure. Through this whole process with the debates with Sister High School, we learned that Del Valle, most of the students and teachers are kind of in the middle. They are for it, but some are against it. And so we kind of met in the middle, but they all had different interesting reasons that we all learned about and took away from it.
And did you have a debate on your campus about this issue?
Yes, we did.
And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, with that, it was just kind of just our own students versus our own students, and we were just then is when we got to choose our side because we wanted to argue the side that we felt stronger for. So also through those is what we also learned from how students at Del Valle feel about the whole refugee thing. And it was pretty much the same thing that we did with Sister High School, except instead of getting a side chosen for us, we got to choose. So.
Do you think it sparked an interest in following the news and what other people are saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially because of the fear factor that goes on to it. A lot of people are sometimes ignorant when it comes to it. So it definitely has sparked some kind of interest in getting updated with the news.
And not only that, but also some students here were a little uninformed about it. So once they found out about it and we started to have debates and we talked about it, they wanted to be more informed about it. So they started to watch the news more so that way they would get more from it.
Have you noticed that from this exercise and activity that any of your friends are talking about it outside of class or outside of the debate?
Yes,
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
Since most of the reasons that the other students had was moralistic reasons for not wanting to do this or to actually do this Syrian refugee deal. Some reasons were more of logistical reasons. It sparked more interest into our debate, and it sparked more interest to talk about it even outside the class. Because of course there's many ways to look at it, many perspectives, and many diversifying reasons.
Has it inspired any of you to reach out to elected officials or people who are really in a position to in sort of state or national policies?
Well, they're actually the people that we debated with in Canada, their teacher was actually in Syria. So it definitely gave us a huge opportunity to ask questions and get more informed by someone that was actually in it.
Yeah, it was a huge opportunity to look into someone's perspective and being the actual country rather than just seeking information from outside the country, which can be very limited. It was an opportunity to grab more information to really look how it really is in Syria, and more so improve our reasoning and our logical arguments.
Also, through getting information through the teacher that was in the Army, we have started to work on things to reach our elected officials here from information that we've gathered through the debates with Sisler and talking to the teachers since they were involved in the Army, and just through our own students. It's helped us gather information to build on what we kind of want to say to the elected official, but in the right manner.
If you were to win the SUSO contest and receive an award of cash or sort of money, what would you do with it?
Well, if we were to receive the money or any sort of money for getting an award for this, we would put it towards these debates, towards getting better technology to have debates with more people around the world rather than just in Sister High School. And we would also try to get the 2,000 immigrants that here are, we would try to get them more involved and just try to help them. It would be able to, getting the money would be able to open up a lot of doors for us, rather not just video conferencing wise, but throughout everything.
Yeah, because our goal in making this presentation is not only to learn more about the Syrian immigrants and the Syrian plan of the United States of America, but also our plan is to also expand this and to make this not only more local, but more international, and to make this really a debate that everybody can have the opportunity to do, because we feel that everybody does deserve to have their own opinion, their own voice to be heard.
Have you had, so currently you have debates with just the Canadian school, or do you have debates with other schools?
We also get
Other
involved
people.
with other schools.
We go with other countries, for example, like Korea, of course, some Canadian schools, and even some schools in Peru, and of course some schools in our own country as well. Yeah, we like to be diversifying. We love to have perspectives from different countries. So we love to debate with several other countries as well.
Also with schools in Jordan and Iran.
Which really gave us insight and perspectives.
Great. We all did a great job.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There are two quotes that inspired us in this project this semester. And first, there was one that Marco Corleone said in The Godfather Part 2 in 1974, when by Mario Puzo and Francis Ford Coppola. My father taught me many things here. He taught me in this room. He taught me, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Second, there is one that President Lincoln once said, teach the children so it will not be necessary to teach the adults. For the past 6 years, our teacher has been doing projects with schools in Iran. During this entire time, the U.S. government has not had an official presence in Iran. Yet, Del Valle High School students have learned a great deal about what is going on there. This year, we wanted to do a very special project. Earlier this year, the Prime Minister of Israel came to speak at the joint sessions of Congress to make sure that the U.S. would not try to sign a nuclear peace treaty with Iran. In order to find out more information about the treaty, our class decided to create a very unique project. Why not do a debate with the high school in Iran over the treaty, but take the opposite sides? We had to be pro very strong development of nuclear weapons, and the Iranian students were just the opposite, anti-nuclear weapons or their development. We are trying to understand what it was like to be on the other side, and this would be like Sun Tzu in his book Art of War, Chapter 4 explained. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeating warriors go to war first and then seek to win. We need to see what both our friends and enemies are doing. By studying our enemies, we may end up seeing that they are or could easily become our friends, exactly what President Lincoln had in mind when he said, teach the children so it will not be necessary to teach the adults. We asked, why are so much against the Iranians? What, if anything, they have done to us? How many Iranians have you ever talked to? How many Iranian have you ever discussed nuclear weapons with? Today we are here to tell you that we are only people in the room can answer yes to the last two questions. Most of other people are like Lindsey Graham. On March 8th of this year, Lindsey Graham said that he fears possibility of Iran possessing a nuclear weapon more than threat posed by terrorist group known as ISIS or the Islamic State. It's not even close. And Iran with a nuclear weapon is a nightmare for us, Israel, and the entire region, said Lindsey Graham said on the NBC's Meet the Press. Graham called both Iran and ISIS our enemy, but when pressed on his charge against Iran, the senior senator from South Carolina called out Iran for destabilizing the region and building rockets that could carry nuclear weapons called intercontinental ballistic missiles. They're a cold-blooded regime that's killed American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're leading the state sponsor of terrorism, he said. They've tried to create a nuclear program
not a peaceful nuclear plant. They're the enemy of us. Graham said current Iranian leadership, including President Hassan Rouhani and Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, are not a so-called moderate regime. They're the root cause of this problem in the Middle East as much as ISIL, he said. If they get more money from the sanction relief, what would they do with it? Build schools and hospitals? No. They would advance the religious cause. At the end of the day, Congress should not approve any deal between us and Iran. And I believe there is growing bipartisan support that sanctions should not be lifted unless Congress agrees, Graham said. Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, also said is pessimistic about the ongoing terror fight. She said that the U.S. should authorize the use of force without a time limit in certain capacities, such as special operations, logistics, and counterintelligence. I think this is going to go on and until the new generations, who are the would-be fighters, come to the conclusion that the cruelty, the brutality, and the savagery of this group does not befit their participation, Feinstein said. No, you may see our problem here. Adults have made up their minds about people who they have never talked to and people they never knew anything about other than what they have learned from television. Remember that Lincoln said, teach the children, so it is not necessary to teach the adults. This is what we decided to do at Valle. We worked with Kurd High School in Tehran, Iran, and decided to have a debate on nuclear weapons. The thing we did different is that we each took the other side of the debate. We had to argue why we should keep or want to have nuclear weapons, and Karad had to argue that there was no need for nuclear weapons. What did we learn? Can students actually learn from other students? Is it really true that we would teach the students so it would not be necessary to teach to adults? And so my partner is going to go next, Kevin. So here he comes.
Hello, can you guys hear me? All right, well, let's begin. You guys see the slide well?
Yes.
All right. Well, as my partner stated, we're here to talk about Iran and friendly debates, more so nuclear weapons and the debate about them. Knowing our enemies, we meet our friends. Our project is a monthly debate over current topics. Our first debate was December the 7th of 2015, which was a topic about nuclear weapons. Should we or should we not get rid of them? Like my partner has stated, Karad High School was to talk about, yes, they should get rid of them. And we took the side of, no, we should not get rid of them. Iran has every right to keep them. Iran and the United States have had a pretty rocky relationship since 1979. We can cross-apply several historic events that can prove that so. The end of Shah, of course, you can see the picture, yeah. Well, the reign of the Shah was pretty much the end. The beginning of a new Iran taking of American hostage, which was a new government. A battle of wills between the U.S. and Iran begins. President Carter leaves and President Reagan gets the 52 hostages. Iran develops into a regional power, and they want nuclear power alongside with that. U.S. and others conduct nuclear talks with Iran. The goal was to keep nuclear weapons from Iran. In the summer of 2015, the U.S. and 5 other nations reached a deal or compromise. That was when Del Valle and Karad High School began to talk. We decided to debate about nuclear weapons. Our debate was about nuclear weapons, and we said that nuclear weapons were necessary. They, Karad High School, argued that nuclear weapons were not necessary. We found out that we were not enemies, and we had very much in common, a lot of things. In the end, it doesn't have to be about nuclear war. We could learn that we have a great deal by common and could easily be friends. That's the end of the presentation. So thank you for listening to the presentation. My partner, Barissa, will be next, bringing forth the conclusion. Thank you.
The proverb that the enemy of my enemy is my friend is not an Arab proverb. It is a Sanskrit proverb that predates the Prophet Muhammad by roughly 1,000 years. It is also a proverb with a dismal history and practice. In case after case, the enemy of my enemy has actually proven to have been an enemy at the time or turned into one in the future. The Mongols did not save Europe from the Turks, and the Soviet Union was scarcely an ally after the end of World War II. ISIS, better known as the Islamic State, are the vital threats to our national security. But the United States needs to remember that this is as it considers greater military action in Iraq and rehasping its military role in Syria. It needs to remember this as it reshapes its security partnerships with proven friends. It threatens to divide Syria definitely into the future, put Iraqi Sunnis under a jihadist regime, become a massive breeding ground for the extremists and terrorists, worsen tensions between Sunnis and Shiites, act of the jihadist challenge to every modern Muslim regime around it, and potentially threaten the flow of energy exports to the global economy. Now, ISIS is an enemy of the United States and a security threat to our regional allies and our vital strategic interests. We face at least 3 enemies and not 1. We do, however, need to be extremely careful about how we intervene. ISIS did not arise because of some spontaneous popular support for Islamic extremism or because of outside support for Sunni fighters. It is the product of a failed Assad regime. In his choice of violent repression over reform, it is a product of Maliki's steady build up on a new authoritarian regime within the cloak of democracy in Iraq, and his steady increase and violent repression of the Sunnis since the 2010 election. We also face challenges from both Iran and now from Russia. Whatever many emerge out of the P5-1 negotiations, what seems to be more moderate Rouhani presidency in Iran and the Iranian presence in Iraq is dominated by hardline officers and ex-officer in the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards that have strong ties to the Maliki and those around him. Now, the wrong kind of support for Iraq is any support to Maliki that would further alienate Iraq Sunnis and give Maliki major new leverage over the Kurds. Any such developments would both further empower a corrupt, autocratic thug and give Iran major new influence in Iraq. Any such support will only make the United States a partner in the Shiite side of the civil war that Maliki has done much to provoke over the last 3 years. At best, the United States will only be a temporary presence with limited access to the country and the people. Iran is on the ground and will stay on the ground. While Iranian moderates may have a different view of the risk involved, it seems all too likely that our IRGC in Khamenei will feel Iran can afford to exploit a future in which both Assad and Maliki are dependent on Iran for support, and ISIS possesses more of a threat to moderate Sunni states than regimes in Iran. We have looked into the mirror, we have seen our future. It is future that will happen and surely will produce some results that are totally shocking to people here in the United States. We're working with Iran and Iraq and Syria. Are we working with the same goals in mind, though? Are we working on the same ends? Let's look at Sun Tzu, in which he said, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war and then seek to win. We, on the other hand, have gone to war first and then try to seek out some sort of solution. This will not work, and it has not worked. Our solution was to learn from our friends and try to place ourselves in their place. By doing so, we fulfilled the words of President Lincoln when he said, teach the children so it will not be necessary to teach the adults. It is clear that we have learned a great deal by our experience and that we understand the Iranian much better now throughout our project than many, if not most of the people in the United States. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Are they on? No. Yeah, they haven't been online since whenever their pictures stopped.
Okay, we may have to go back to this. Go to mute.
What do you mean?
Hi, sorry about that.
I don't have to. So should I start over?
It cut out right before you were going to introduce your solution.
Oh, okay. Well, this is our solution speech. The proverb that the enemy of my enemy is my friend is not an Arab proverb. It is a Sanskrit proverb that predates the Prophet Muhammad by roughly 1,000 years. It is also a proverb with a dismal history and practice. In case after case, the enemy of my enemy has actually proven to have been an enemy at the time or turned into one in the future. The Mongols did not save Europe from the Turks, and the Soviet Union was scarcely an ally after the end of World War II. ISIS are the vital threats to our national security. The United States needs to remember this as it considers greater military action in Iraq and reshaping its military role in Syria. It needs to remember this as it reshapes its security partnerships with proven friends like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. There is no questions that rise of ISIS and the creation of an Islamic State that overlaps eastern Syria and much of western Iraq possess a major security threat to the Middle East. Now, we face at least 3 enemies and not one. We do, however, need to be extremely careful about how we intervene. ISIS, the Islamic State, did not arise because of some spontaneous popular support for the Islamic extremism or because of the outside support for Sunni fighters. It is a product of the failed Assad regime in his choice of violent repression over reform. It is a product of Maliki's steady buildup of a new authoritarian regime within the cloak of democracy in Iraq and his steady increase in violent repression of the Sunnis since the 2010 election. We also face challenges from both Iran and now from Russia. Whatever may emerge out of the P5-1 negotiations that seem to be more moderate, Rouhani presidency in Iran and the Iranian presence in Iraq is dominated by hardline officers and ex-officers in the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guards that have strong ties to Maliki and those around him. Now, the wrong kind of U.S. support for Iraq is any support to Maliki that would further alienate Iraq's Sunnis and give Maliki major new leverage over the Kurds. Any such development would further empower a corrupt, autocratic thug and give Iran major new influence in Iraq. Any such support will only make the United States a partner in the Shiite side of the civil war that Maliki has done much to provoke over the last 3 years. At best, the United States will only be a temporary presence with limited access to the country and the field. Iran is on the ground and will stay on the ground. While Iranian moderates may have been different view of the risk involved, it seems all too likely that the IRGC and Khamenei will feel Iran can support and exploit a future in which both Assad and Maliki are dependent on Iran for support, and ISIS possess more of a threat to moderate Sunni states and regimes than Iran. We have looked into the mirror and we have seen our future. It is our future that will happen and surely will produce some results that are totally shocking to people here in the U.S. We're working with Iran and Iraq and Syria. Are we working with the same goals in mind, however? Are we working to the same ends? Let us look at what Sun Tzu said. Victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war and then seek to win. We, on the other hand, have gone to war first and then try to seek out some sort of solution. This will not work, and it has not worked. Our solution was to learn from our friends and try to place ourselves in their place by doing so, and fulfill the words of President Lincoln when he said, "Teach the children, so it will be not necessary to teach the adults." It is clear that we have learned a great deal by our experience and that we understand the Iranian much better through our project than many, if not most, of the people in the United States. Thank you. Do you have any questions? Can they hear me?
What made you all pick this topic for a debate?
Well, based on the circumstances and the times that we're dealing with now, it really sparked interest in us, and we wanted to know more about it so that we were well informed.
Yeah, nuclear talks about Iran is a very spark topic and a very sensitive topic that is very famous in current events. So it was obviously a very good choice for debating. Also, it's one of our monthly debates that we'd love to talk about.
You know, these monthly debates, is that something did y'all have a debate about Iran relations and nuclear weapons at your school as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had them with Iran. Actually, we had a debate with Iran on December 7th on nuclear weapons.
Just a quick question about that. Who facilitates the language barrier there?
No, there is no language barrier. In fact, very many schools in Iran learn English as part of their core classes, so it's not very hard to have a language. There's really no language barrier.
It's not hard to communicate with each other.
Great.
Has your interaction with students in Iran like inspired you to like potentially learn some Farsi or learn more about their culture?
Yeah. Despite everything that the news have talked about Iran has their own culture, very interesting culture, and the people there are very good, very nice, just like American people. So yeah, after doing something like this and talking to a school from Iran, it sparked our interest to learn more about them because their culture is very interesting.
What sources do you use to do your research?
Well, we researched online. You can find anything online really, and also when talking to them, we were able to get an experience to which we can get the knowledge from someone that's actually in Iran and understands.
And one thing to keep in mind, we have talked to these guys before. We have, like we said, we do monthly debates with these guys. So we have talked to them before. And on top of that, of course, the quotes that my partners have gotten were, of course, they have selected them. And on top of that, of course, all the information from the news helped really devise our arguments. We also have done not so much debates, but just casual conversations as we start to learn more of their culture and their country. We just had conversations that were casual, not debates about this topic itself, which helped us get more information from their own perspective.
Now, the debates change monthly. We get different topics, and this just was one of the topics that we had to address.
Mm-hmm.
Or, something that gets our attention.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph Stalin said, "The death of one man is a tragedy. The death of millions is a statistic." Our problem this semester is that we had to defend him. Our teacher gave us this task because we asked him a simple question. How can you defend someone that is guilty? That is when he tried to teach us something. We were assigned on the defense of Georgian-born Russian communist leader Joseph Stalin. He was responsible for more than 60 million deaths in World War II. At first, my partner and I wondered, why do we have to defend such a monster? And then we learned that it was in terms of proof, not guilt, that we should be looking at. We need to always remember that you are innocent until proven guilty, and this proof must be offered in the court of law. Without that, you cannot be guilty. So now my partner is next.
Hello there. Can you guys hear me well?
Yes.
All right, so let's begin. Obviously, as my partner stated, this is a debate over Joseph Stalin. Of course, we took the side of him not being guilty. So this is, of course, a project about Joseph Stalin in Moot Court. Now, Joseph Stalin has been recognized as a mass murderer of all time, really, and we are, of course, defending him. Now, here are some. Now we took this Kiev versus Del Valle. We went against Kiev High School. These are the attorneys. Cecilia Perez, as she have gone before, she is the first speaker. Here are the Kiev prosecutors. And Joseph Stalin's acts when he was in Russia, he caused 12 million deaths. Once again, the Kiev prosecutors. Now, we understand by the famine in Ukraine and countries like that, there are people starving, but really, who is at fault? Here's Holodomor. Here is areas impacted by the famine. As if you can look at a geographical standpoint, most of the famine was caused in the eastern part of Ukraine. The western part really wasn't affected as much. There's Kiev again. And here are some headlines in the Chicago newspaper. Who was a greater murderer, Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler? And 1933, grasping for a prosecution. Stalin killed over 60 million people. If you can look at the graph, it is the amount of people that have been killed by country. You can take some other countries like China and Germany, for example. The USSR leads in that standard. Now, here's the things we learned about the experience. First, we learned how to defend a person who's apparently is very much guilty. We learned to listen carefully to the charges. We learned that the prosecution has to prove the defendant's guilt. And furthermore, just because it happened doesn't mean you can truly prove it. And even the guilty, like Stalin or anybody in general, deserve a strong defense under the United States of America. In preparing for this trial, we found out that Stalin was a very bad person, obviously, yet he may not have been personally responsible for the Holodomor. Students learn more by doing this rather than reading out of a textbook. This was a wonderful experience to go into high school from Kiev because we learned more out of doing this. And that's the end of the presentation. Partner Stephanie Garcia will bring forth the choice.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Garcia, and I will be giving the solution speech. Russia's international propaganda outlet just recycled an old, debunked claim that Stalin's terror famine in Ukraine was a Western hoax. Sputnik News, the slick Kremlin-owned multimedia site once dubbed the BuzzFeed of propaganda, usually offers a predictable mix of content with a pro-Moscow message. These days, its accounts of Russia heroics in Syria concern trolling reports on troubles in the United States and Europe, and opinion pieces denouncing the West's hypocrisy to human rights. Full-throated apologetics for Joseph Stalin are not part of the standard fare. But last week, Sputnik ran a feature that they offered exactly that, along with what can be reasonably called genocide denial. The title of the article by Villanova, who has no bio on the site but describes herself on Twitter as an independent political analyst, speaks for itself. Pomodoro hoax, the anatomy of a lie invented by West's propaganda machine. The Homodor, roughly translated as murder by starvation, is the Ukrainian term for what the late Robert Conquest called the terror famine, the devastating human-made hunger epidemic that killed as many as 7 million Soviet peasants, most of them Ukrainians in 1932 to 1933. The famine has been subject of much political controversy as well as scholarly debate. For supporters of Ukrainian independence from Russia, the Homodor has long been a symbol both of brutal oppression and of national identity. After the 2004 Orange Revolution, Ukrainian's pro-Western president Viktor Yushchenko made Homodor commemoration a national issue, particularly for its 75th anniversary in 2008. The Ukrainian parliament voted to declare the famine a genocide. Ukraine also sought such recognition on an international level. A European Parliament resolution passed in October 2008 stopped short of using the term genocide, but condemned the famine as an appalling crime against the Ukrainian people and against humanity, deliberately and cruelly planned by Stalin's regime to crush peasant resistance. Russia's reaction was hostile and defensive. Ukraine's Homodor commemoration was decreed as Russophobic, even though Yushchenko explicitly laid the crime at the doorstep of the Imperial Communist Soviet Rim. Rather than to blame any one people, the President Medvedev peevishly declined an invitation to attend a Holodomor remembrance event in Kiev in November 2008, using Ukraine leadership of distorting the tragedy to achieve its political ends. Later that year, Ukraine's move to introduce a United Nations resolution recognizing the Holodomor as a genocide was thwarted by Russia. Yet, by and large, neither the Russian government nor the pro-Kremlin media at the time questioned Stalin's real responsibility for the famine. They simply argued that the policies which led to mass starvation were not specifically directed at Ukrainians, but at the peasant class regardless of ethnicity. The favored Russian view was reflected in the work of Penza State University historian Viktor Kondrushin, whose 2008 book, The Famine of 1932 to 1933, The Tragedy of the Russian Village, argued that common estimates of the famine's toll lowballed the numbers of the Russian countryside to the Volgan regions. At the height of the Holodomor controversy, the fall Istvia ran an interview with the Kondrushin under the headline, "Russia wasn't killing Ukraine, a leader was killing his people." Kondrushin was harshly critical of Ukraine's leadership for portraying the Holodomor as a crime against Ukrainians and supposedly diminishing the suffering of Russians and other ethnic groups. But he was also unequivocal that the Great Famine was a form of state terror, an artificial calamity brought by the collectivization of agriculture, violent reprisals against resistors, and measures sealing off famine-stricken regions to stop starving people from fleeing to the surging flood. The investigative feature included blood-curdling experts from the Kondrushin's interviews with survivors, as well as archival documents. Novelist Michael Sovik's April 1933 letter to Stalin describing the atrocities had seen the commissioners inflict on villages suspected of hoarding crops, and several letters from the paper's own archives on the 1930s, in which either foolish or brave Soviet citizens demanded to know why there was no coverage on hunger. The Holodomor is a subject of legitimate debate. Was the famine deliberately engineered to both punish and break the recalcitrant peasantry, or was it the unintended result of Stalin's war on private farming, which included mass deportations of rich peasants and ruthlessly enforced grain requisition quotas? Were Ukrainian villages singled out for particularly harsh treatment? Was it, as Ukraine argues, a genocide? Or is it more accurate to use the term straticide? Coined by the former Lutheran dissident and Yale University Professor Thomas Vinskola to describe a destruction of a social class. The facts and issues are full of complexities. It's true that many of the apparatchiks and commissioners who pillaged the Ukrainian countryside were themselves ethnic Ukrainians, but it's also true that the Holodomor coincided with a massive purge of Ukrainian political and intellectual elites. Driven by Stalin's fear of Ukrainian nationalism as a potential threat to Soviet unity, this fact had led noted French historian Nicholas Wirth to conclude that it's possible to define the totality of intentional political actions taken from the late summer of 1932 by the Stalinist regime against the Ukrainian peasantry as genocide, albeit motivated by political strategy rather than ethnic or racial animosity. Genocide or not, no one except Stalinists doubts that the Soviet famine of 1932 to 1933 was a crime against humanity. Indeed, Russia supported a 2010 resolution of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe that condemned it as such. That was Kremlin friend Viktor Yanukovych was running things to Kiev and making it clear that he was also committed to being Ukraine in Russia's orbit. But now Ukraine is the westward-looking enemy, and the Kremlin rolls out the big lie once again, this time for international consumption. Villanova's article also seems to be part of a concerned campaign rather than a one-off contrarian opinion. A fairly similar piece under the same byline, Holodomor Hawks Joseph Stalin's crimes that never took place, ran on Sputnik News in August. It too referenced total as well as the Montclair State University literature professor Grover Furr, a revisionist and a career-long quest to exterminate Stalin. The intent seems clear to cast doubt, at least among more gullible segments of the Western public, on earlier Moscow regime's crimes against Ukraine, while also tarnishing pro-independence Ukrainians with a Nazi brush. The Sputnik news is using an apparent Soviet fabrication as a source for its new carnage is both ironic and fitting. Russia may not truly be back to the USSR, but the propaganda machine, it seems, has come full circle. There are 5 interesting things that we learned in our project. 1, Hearst played an important role with doctor pictures with his newspapers. 2, there is no direct proof of Stalin's involvement. 3, a vast amount of people died. All of this could have been prevented. And 4, Stalin's critics point to large death counts, but cannot provide the missing link that would tie Stalin with their deaths. 5, many other parts of Russia were also very hard hit by the famine. We are so glad for the opportunity to have done this and how much fun it was to argue with the students from Kiev. We are ready for any questions that you have.
So what was the most difficult part of this project and presentation?
I'm sorry?
What was the most difficult part about this presentation or the research that went into preparing for it?
I think the most difficult part about preparing for this presentation was trying to defend Stalin, even though some of us may have believed that he was guilty. It was hard trying to...
It was very hard because here in America, there's so much propaganda and so much turning of, when we look at history textbooks or where teachers tell us about Stalin, it seems to vilify him as a person. And thus it makes it difficult here for Americans to actually defend someone like him. Because here in America, we're taught that Stalin is not only a bad person, but also was really the person who, orchestrated the entire genocide.
And also just, also just having these debates with people in Ukraine, it was hard because it also hit them hard and it hit their ancestors hard. So trying to have them argue something that they might not necessarily believe in, because we do switch sides with these debates, that was also, it wasn't just hard on our part, but also hard on their part because it hit them harder with their ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
In your research, I'm curious to know if you talked to anyone about sort of the dilemmas and how to approach defending someone who you think is guilty.
Well, to start off on that, of course, we've looked to our own students and some students of our school to their opinion about this genocide, which is labeled as. Of course, most of the opinions, as I've stated before, why it was so difficult to make this possible, many of them have stated that it was Joseph Stalin is guilty without a shadow of a doubt. Of course, the viewpoint here in America really is that Stalin is guilty without a doubt, and not even without evidence or any proper cause to actually convict him of anything. They think that he's guilty already.
And also, we got some information from Sister Survivors. It was just survivors. It was also just hard for them to be able to talk about these things, but we knew that there were places that we couldn't go with them because it might have hit them too hard. And we also tried to make this debate not too personal, so that way it wouldn't hit them hard either. We tried to make it more of a logistical thing rather than a kind of personal and logistical thing. And also from Sister High School, 1/4 of them are from the Ukraine. So whenever we do the debates with them, it's also nice to have a little side conversation with them about this also.
Yeah, we've had the fortune of having them be part of Ukraine, and really maybe them themselves are not really tied with the genocide, but their parents or their grandparents might have been. And it's very fortunate for us to be able to have this kind of connection, this type of connection to information that could be very vital and really could have been hidden from us all this time that we've learned from the genocide.
What did this doing this project teach you about not only the American justice system, but the American political system and how those two entities might, overlap in some ways as well?
Well, it taught us not only about the political system, but within how the political system was within this time and how it has changed. It showed us all the differences and all the improvements that we have made, and how political systems all over the world have made improvements. And it's taught us, or we've learned that all the improvements that they've had to go through are all different, and also that justice isn't necessarily equal treatment. And we've just learned all that through this whole thing.
Yeah, according to the American court system, there is supposed to be maintain a balance and a level of equality, but we can see from the opinions, of course, of the common man, and we can see, of course, the past views of Stalin himself. It's quite clear that there was error in this because they vilified him, and because of that, before the case even started, they were already saying he was guilty without even any proof at all. So by taking this project, by looking at this, it is clear that the judicial system, and not only on top of that, but also the courtroom system, must be greatly weighted towards having equal treatment. You are not guilty until you are proven. You must be proven to be guilty. We must keep that sort of law in anybody, whether Joseph Stalin, Hitler, or anybody. They are man, so they should be treated as such.
Great, thank you. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have 2 projects left, so I think I'm going to try to come on. I'm going to tell them about the use of time and just make sure that we don't go over 11:20. Before you get started, I just want to let you know that we're watching the clock right now, and we just want to make sure that your presentation is about at 15 minutes so that we still have time for questions for both of the presentations today.
Yes.
So when you get to about 13 minutes, I'll let you know that you have 2 more minutes, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So we have a problem. Should all students be required to do service learning? In order to study this problem, we tried our own experiment. We volunteered to help at more than 15 concession stands. Well, we volunteered for 16, but one got canceled. We also worked at the University of Texas and the Valle High School. We did concerts, volleyball games, and basketball games. And we also volunteered for their YMCA 26th annual Christmas program for the community. And in each case, we had to invite twice the number of people we needed to show, so at least half of the people could show up, so we had enough helpers. So what is service learning? Why is it important? Why is it really important to our school and our students particularly? What can you gain from this experience? Like in the United States, civic engagement has been a crucial component of society, whether it is through political activism or lending a helping hand to our fellow neighbors. In recent years, youth participation in volunteerism has fluctuated, resulting in growing number of high school requiring them to complete a certain number of hours of service in order to graduate. This increase is mostly notably seen in the late 80s and early 90s when volunteer rates among the youth of 16 to 19-year-olds soared from 13.4 to 24.5% between 1989 to 2007. There has been a range of reactions regarding the movement of mandatory participation in the community service, from lawsuits to enthusiasm, which beckons these questions. How has this requirement changed since the 90s, and how has it affected their long-term outcomes as citizens? Since the 90s, there has been an even greater push for service as a result of federal incentives, thus engaging more students into the community, creating a civic-minded individuals, which can be dependent on the structure of a mandatory program. Now, the combination of the need for youth to be civically engaged as well as the opportunities provided by the federal government motivated high schools to incorporate community service or service learning as a part of the curriculum, sometimes as a high school requirement. As of August 2011, only the state of Maryland and the District of Columbia has adopted community service as a graduation requirement. While this is relatively low, high school districts across 35 states incorporate some level of service learning, whether required community service of granting credit towards graduations, which was pretty high compared to District 7 states in 2001. Education Commission of the states, as a result of increasing number of schools that have community service or service learning components in the years of 2008 to 2010, 33.7% of the civic engagement in the U.S. was school-based. Although many we see the social gain society and the participants perceived by being mandated to volunteer, there has been opposition to the high school graduation requirement.
Okay, now I will be giving the product speech. So, community service learning. Putting you into the YMCA, here is our youth and government community organizing. Our project was community service events for our high school and for the YMCA, and these are just a couple of what we have done. Here's just a quick video of one of the events that we did this past weekend for YMCA. Sorry. That was just some of the video from this past Saturday when we went to go help kids in need. Del Valle is not a town, it is a school. We have the F1 road race in our district. We volunteered to work at that F1 race. And Del Valle used to be located in a food desert. We also worked at school concession stands, which I mentioned. And Del Valle is the poorest school in the Austin area. Poverty rates are on the rise in 2015, and 91% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. The poverty rates in 2007, we were at 67%, being the highest. Del Valle is also part urban and part rural. Service learning is giving back to the community. Now, my partner Pamela will be giving the solution speech.
Mahatma Gandhi once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." Throughout this assignment, I've realized that the most of the times we are selfish, materialistic, greedy, and egocentric. We are living in a dream when everything is actually a mess. Our society today has reached a point in which we have become accustomed to being different and insensitive towards the feelings and sufferings of others. Sadly, our ignorance is blinding in creating silly illusions of a perfect world where none exists. We fail to realize, however, that just because it is not always obvious or behind our backyard does not mean it is not there. Now, throughout the course of a lifetime, I have traveled to other countries and witnessed things that make us want to lose our faith in humanity. We learning by doing and giving back to our community. We must create a bond that ties us to our community. Without this tie, we have nothing that binds us together. We need this bond and we need our community. In sum, it is crucial to have youth participate in a service learning community service, mandatory or voluntary. Volunteerism would expose them to becoming civically engaged. When the youth are not involved, whether socially or politically, it puts our society at risk. We need a holistic view of education and citizenship in order to save society at risk. It is therefore vital that we encourage our youth to become more involved. There is much to learn outside the classroom. There will be a continuous debate on whether or not community service should be required. But I think that we need to find ways to engage students to think beyond the walls of the classroom. I will ask you, Who would be better off if we did service learning at Del Valle? The answer is our community. Who would care more about giving back to our community? Del Valle students. Why do we need service learning at Del Valle High School? Maybe because we are the least affluent area of the Travis County. Maybe because we have a high mobility rate. Maybe because we have a low student involvement rate. Or maybe because it is the right thing to do. It is your choice. We are glad to participate. I would like to end with a quote from a tennis pro, Arthur Ashe. From what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life. And quote from a former NBC News anchor, Tom Broa, when he said, "It is easy to make a buck. It's tougher to make a difference." We are here to make a difference, and we would like to show you this by the project in which we have made such difference.
Okay. We're ready for any questions that you have.
So your solution is to just do more service learning in your school?
Yes, ma'am. We want to be able to show students that because whenever we get something from our community, whether it be support or any sort of donation, we want to show our students here that we should cherish it, being that we are one of the poorest schools in this area. So we just want to show that it's more important to give back to them. So that way they're, whoever is giving to us isn't just, it's not just a one-way thing. We also want to show or have more student involvement and just show them other things outside of school and outside of education, and just show them how much this would help everyone.
And if you were to receive funding from winning SUSO, what would you do with it?
If we were to receive funding from getting from SUSO, we would spend it on having more service projects. We would have, per se, buses from the school to wherever we were going to go help, whether it be at Lady Burger Lake or at YMCA. We would have, because transportation can be a big problem here. Not everyone necessarily has a way around besides a school bus or besides a Metro bus, and it doesn't always go everywhere. So we would use the money towards things like that. And we would have to go to the east side of Austin, and it would just be, we would get more students involved and have them, we would be able to provide more for them to give back.
How do you think that your project of getting more students involved at your school and in the community can affect their parents or their families?
Well, it would affect the parents and the families because at some of the service events we do, their families are able to come, and it would help them also maybe come closer together as a family, but also their family learn how to give back as well, because people are giving to their kids, and they want to be able to give back in a way that they can, because they can't necessarily do other ways. But also most of our parents are Spanish speaking, so they aren't necessarily as involved as they could be. But if we were to do service learning and things like that, then it would be easier for them to get more involved and for them to come more.
Any other questions?
No, good job,
Okay,
y'all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jason Cano, and I am a student at Del Valle High School, and today we're going to demonstrate to you how a moot court works. There are some simple rules to follow. First, there are 2 teams of 2 students. One team is for the appellant, and one team is for the appealee. Each speaker speaks for no more than 15 minutes, and during those 15 minutes, they are questioned by a panel of judges. On the appellant side, the students reserve 5 minutes or any given time that they wish for a rebuttal. The first point of error is here you would develop a speech about why a search warrant was illegal. The argument will be based upon case law, constitutional rights, and proper police procedure. The judge will ask questions such as, if you are guilty, why should a guilty person get off simply because of some clinical error? Do we not all make mistakes? Or why is it so important for police to follow rules? Because the criminals will not follow these rules, correct? Another one possibly being, how does the Fourth Amendment apply here? Or are you arguing that Mr. Colson was not allowed to practice his First Amendment right to free religion? The second point of error is how you would develop a speech about why Mr. Colson was not able to practice his religion guaranteed under both the U.S. and Texas constitutions. This argument will be based upon case law, constitutional rights, legal statutes, and proper police procedures. The judge will ask questions such as what rights are guaranteed to a person to practice religion in this case? Are these rights absolute? Can the state come in and take over a family if they practice a religion that harms a member of the family? And how does this square the separation of church and state? Then the state side will have their speeches. First speech will represent the state side on the first point of error. The first point of error being, here you would develop a speech about why the search warrant was legal. This argument would be based upon case law, constitutional rights, and proper police procedures. The judges ask questions such as, even if Detective Hodges made some mistakes, should we completely disregard what she found at the house? Or why is it so important that the police follow rules because the criminals would not follow these rules? How does the Fourth Amendment apply here? And are you arguing Detective Hodges made no mistakes? The second point of error would develop a speech about why Mr. Colson was able to practice his religion as guaranteed by both U.S. and Texas constitutions. This argument will be based upon case law, constitutional rights, legal statute, and proper police procedures. The judges ask questions such as, what rights are guaranteed to a person to practice a religion in this case? And was he able to practice his religion? Are the rights absolute? Can the state come in and intervene at any point if it does harm with a family member? Or how does this square the relations between church and state? At the end of the round, the appellant will be given 3 to 5 minutes to answer the arguments that the appealee brought up. You will address each issue in order of which it is brought up. Thank you very much. You will note that it is easy, fun, and a great way to learn a language. Now I will be transfer over to my partner, Stephanie Garcia, which will give the presentation.
Now I will be giving the product speech. First, world-class schools YMCA International Moot Court. And this was a case of the faith-healing father. Our sponsors were world-class schools here in Austin, Texas, world-class schools in Peru, Texas Youth in Government, Peru Ministry of Education, and YMCA Youth in Government. Our project was to develop a moot court league that will begin in January 2016, and more than 300 high schools all over the world have signed up. It's the largest project of its kind in the world. The use of technology will be Zoom video conferencing via the internet, and we have proposed the idea to educational leaders in Peru and here in the U.S. And these are just some simple rules. There are 2 students for each team, one for the appellant and the appellee. Each speaker will have 15 minutes. The appellant team will reserve some time for the rebuttal. And the first point of error is whether the search warrant was improperly issued, mandating the suppression of the evidence obtained as a result of the search warrant, and whether the court abused its discretion in failing to do so. The appellant first speaker will point out why the search warrant was illegal, and the appellee first speaker will point out why the search warrant was legal. The second point of error in the case at bar is whether the appellant's prosecution under Texas Penal Code sections 19.04 and 22.04 as applied to him were unconstitutional under the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and due to its interaction with Texas Religious Accommodation Statute, found in Chapter 110 of the Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code. The appellant, second speaker, will point out why Mr. Colson could not practice his religious freedom, and the appellee, second speaker, will point out how the state has to step in when there is harm to someone else. These are just some sample judge questions for this first speaker on the appellant side. The first one is, if you are guilty, why should a guilty person get off simply because of some clerical error? Do we not all make some mistakes? And these are also some questions for the first speaker on the appellee side. Just one of them is, even if Detective Hodges made some mistakes, should we completely disregard what she has found at the house? And some questions for the second speaker on the appellant side. One of them being, what cases are guaranteed, or what rights are guaranteed to a person to practice a religion in this case? And as for the second speaker on the appellee side, a question for them would be, even if Detective Hodges made some mistakes, should we completely disregard what she has found at the house? And just the speaking order, as mentioned earlier, the appellant goes first. It's the first speaker for 13, the second for 12 minutes, and then the appellee goes for 15 minutes each, and then the appellant gets their 5-minute rebuttal that they reserved at the beginning. The time includes the speeches and any questions from the judges. The time does not stop whenever judges ask them questions. And the theory of the case for the appellant side is that the search warrant was illegal and Mr. Colson was not able to practice his constitutionally guaranteed rights of freedom of religion. And the theory for the case of the appellee is that the search warrant was legal and was ruled so on numerous occasions, and the rights of Mr. Colson to practice his religion has never been denied, and the state has a right and a duty to step in when the rights of one are being denied by the rights of others, especially in this case when the rights are the right to life. Was moot court participation beneficial for you? Many students here also consider moot court as a very rather useful education method, and this was 92% of the students. No students stood in opposition claiming the method was useless. The other 8% didn't answer at all. Do you consider moot court as a beneficial teaching method? 92% of the students would also integrate moot court as a compulsory high school teaching method. The rest of the 8% students disagreed. However, they would make it optional or not compulsory for every high school or vocational school. And let the arguments begin. Now, my partner Pamela will be giving the solution speech. Thank you.
Moot court competitions provide a valuable education and life experience for student participants. Participation in moot court enhances the students' research, writing, oral, and analytical skills. It teaches them to communicate more effectively and to think quickly on their feet. Moot court often provides students with the invaluable experience of arguing in front of real judges, magistrates, and seasoned practitioners. It also teaches them the importance of teamwork as moot court teams usually consist of 2 or 3 students who must work together for the team to succeed. Finally, it improves students' time management skills. Moot court competitors must balance the demands of their preparation with schoolwork and other extracurricular activities. Thus, students learn to set goals and priorities and to work effectively under pressure, which stimulates conditions most attorneys face in practice. International moot court competitions provide additional benefits for both students and teachers. Because the topics of international competitions often concern matters in the importance of all nations, preparing for such competition involves researching international sources and gaining new perspectives on complex legal problems that affect everyone. Furthermore, because participants come from many countries, competitions provide an invaluable opportunity for students and teachers to meet people who are different from themselves and whom would expand their worldview.
Okay, we are ready for any questions.
So are you, is the program going to start in January? You said propose the program to begin in January 2016?
Yes, we've already proposed it to many schools in Peru and here in the U.S., and we've already had over 300 schools sign up to be involved in it, but the actual starts of all the trials will start in January of 2016.
Okay, so are teams starting their work or not yet?
Yes, we've already given out the case to everyone, and they're already starting to get all their stuff together.
Great.
So will there be any sort of like oversight board or some ultimate sort of leadership that will make sure all of these courts are following a certain set of rules and that everyone is functioning in a correct manner?
Yeah, so with the world-class schools will be the top or kind of the leader to make sure that everyone is doing it, which will be us here at Del Valle and a school in Lima, Peru. And there will always be at least one of us there or video conferencing with them to make sure that the court is going as it should and that everyone's doing the rules and everything. Make sure that the lawyers are doing their part and all that.
Great.
If you're awarded any type of like monetary prize or financial prize, how would you use that to kind of further your solution?
Well, if we were awarded any kind of monetary anything from SUSO, we would use it to benefit our school here and other schools to get to help get more courtrooms across the world and help anyone who may be having trouble with any sort of technology or anything that may be in the way that may cost something. We would help them with the any money that we were to get, just so that way we could have more courtrooms open up all around the world. And so that way we could turn the classroom into a courtroom, so that way more people could get involved and join us.
Yeah, and one other thing to note is that the purpose of having moot courts is so we can bring education to the courtroom, really give students an opportunity, a chance to be able to be lawyers and to learn more law. And of course, if we were to, of course, have the honor of getting the prizes, we would use that money in order to expand to other schools that may not be as fortunate to have technology to be able to communicate with us or to be in our program. Because our goal here is to expand and to give education that is not just reading and sitting a textbook, but actually participating.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, guys, and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Great job.
We really appreciate it.